not long until the January transfer window opens. Let's talk, shall we? Lautaro Martinez, did I say that right?
Lautaro.
Lautaro Martinez, of course, has been amazing for Inter so far this season. Heavily linked over the last few days to a move to Barcelona, Sid. Any chance?
Well, the chance isn't for now. That's the first thing to say, in that Barcelona have identified him as one of the many players that they see as part of a, if you like, a kind of a future restructuring in the absence of Luis Suarez, who, by the way, has publicly talked about this in interviews over the last 3-4 weeks. He said, you know, when I'm not here, Barcelona need to find someone who can take over my kind of role. There's a sense that he can do some of the things that Suarez does, that of course he's extremely talented and will score a lot of goals, and he's someone that they like. But of course, there's a difference between saying, oh, I like that guy, and being able to go out and get them and being able to make it happen. I think for the time being, at least, what they'll be looking at more in the winter window is whether they can get a cheap fix so they can have someone in as a backup to Suarez, a bit like they tried last year with Prince, and of course that went horribly wrong.
We'll talk about the cheap fix in a moment, Sid, but when it comes to Barcelona and Martinez, isn't Griezmann supposed to be the next Suarez?
Well, I mean, this is a question. Bear in mind that Griezmann's age means that he's not a long-term player for Barcelona. He's a mid-term player for Barcelona, and I think you're right. The likelihood is that at some point they try him in the middle of the forward line. But of course, in a way, Griezmann's in that slightly weird position, as indeed everybody is, which is that his natural positions are both Suarez and Messi's. So of course, his kind of future at Barcelona, I think, really is on the right-hand side of a front three. But of course, no one wants to, and they were forced to do this by Messi the other day in that Ballon d'Or speech, no one wants to even confront the possibility that Messi might be coming to the end yet. And no one really wants to look at how they handle this. And of course, things change, because one of the things we shouldn't forget is that when Neymar went to Paris Saint-Germain, it didn't just hurt Barcelona because they lost Neymar then. It hurt Barcelona because this, they thought, was their perfect plan. Neymar was the second best player in the world, would come to Barcelona, would win it all with Messi, which of course he did in the first season when they won the European Cup, and then bit by bit he would start to take over, and then when Messi goes, Neymar would be at the kind of mid to back end of his career with 3 or 4 seasons ahead of him, and he would be the best player in the world to see it out, and then there would be another generation coming in behind that. Right now, that succession plan, of course, has been broken, and the truth is that Barcelona don't really know where to go from here.
What's going to happen with Griezmann, Sid? Like, is he going to come good? Is it all going to work out? Because he's a great player.
Yeah, and I must confess, my kind of gut reaction is to hang on to what you said at the end there. He's a great player. He's also a very clever footballer, and he's also an incredibly disciplined footballer. You watch the amount of work he got through with Diego Simeone. You watch how deep he was prepared to go to bail people out. You watch now in that front three with Barcelona, where 2 of them don't really run back. Suarez does a lot of work, but it's forward and it's pressing. There's not a lot of coming back. Griezmann does absolutely loads of that. He'll drop back into almost a left-back position and leave the other 2 at the top of the pitch. And you think all of those elements make you think, yes, this will work. But of course, you're still talking about a great player put in a position that's not really his own. And maybe also there's another question, which is he actually going to be doing too much work because of that awareness that perhaps he has 2 other players who don't? I must admit, I'm not completely convinced by it, but like you, my kind of gut reaction is to say, look, he's too good to fail. He's too good for this not to work in some way.
Too good to fail?
I'm not certain that that's the way I would frame it. He is a very good player, Antoine Griezmann, but he hasn't been able to find a role within Barcelona. And we have seen a version of this before. We saw it with Coutinho. We have seen it with Alexis Sanchez as well. That guys that were excellent players, world-class players, and yet they couldn't find a role. And because they couldn't find a role, they were shown the door and said, thank you, but no thanks. And so Antoine Griezmann, for all the things that Sid said and the work that he gives you and all those things defensively, that's not what he's going to be judged upon in Barcelona. Because people are not watching him tracking back and making a slide tackle. You may appreciate it for the day, but in the big picture, you are wanting him to score goals on the other side and be a dynamic player in the attacking half. Neymar never came back and did a slide tackle on anybody. But that's also because Barcelona was better in the midfield back then. And so there wasn't any need for Neymar to come back. This is a different Barcelona, Barcelona that doesn't quite control the pace of the game the way that they did before. And so there are players that are going to have to do a lot of work. And it's not going to be Messi, it's not going to be Suarez. So it has to be Griezmann. So he's out of position, and then he's tracking back to defend. Impossible for him to then do a job on the attacking half. I'm not sure that this works long term.
With your coach's hat on, Stevie, how do you fix it? Is it fixed?
Well, you can only put... I would suggest you could say he's too good to fail if you're putting him in his proper position. He's certainly not too good to fail if you're playing him out of position, because the proof's in the pudding. Right now, that's what it looks like. But when's he ever going to get in his best place? For France, he's allowed to roam around and create stuff and sometimes get on the end of it, and he's the main man, and he's fantastic. Not at Barcelona, he's not. He's in the wrong spot.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN+.